This is the Sports Fix.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Hey, call me Mr. Pig!
We'll call you whatever you like, as long as we can call you a fan of the Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, you've heard me talking about it. Millionaires being made all season long at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. I've been playing there too. It's now J-Rock's favorite one-week fantasy football site. What's one-week fantasy football? That means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Have a player who's hurt? That's no problem at all because you change everything week to week. Injuries don't derail your chance at victory. It's a new season every week. You're never stuck with the same players. You can pick your team in just minutes and be on your way to winning huge cash. This season, one listener turned $10 into $5,000. Another turned $2 into $10,000. And a new millionaire has been crowned nearly every week this season at DraftKings.com. You could be next. Imagine winning $1 million in one day. $1 million just for playing fantasy football at DraftKings.com. Head to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Spreaker to play for free in the $10 million Fantasy Football World Championships. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter Spreaker now at DraftKings.com.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
It's just an old ball, really. Nothing more. We grew with it and studied it. We owned it and shared it. We prayed they would hit it and miss it. We prayed they would catch it and drop it. We wanted it to bounce and fly, speed up and slow down. We prayed it would come to us, and we wanted to give it away. We have watched it weather storms and bask in the sun. It's right here in our hands. Established 1901.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
I'm not trying to troll the Browns fans. I just had to throw a little fun into the broadcast. Welcome back, J-Rock, back with you, rolling on as we get moving here. First segment went a while there. A couple of good phone calls there. For those of you guys that didn't get through, I apologize. As I said, I'm going to open the phones back up on the back half of the broadcast for sure, but thanks to you guys for being a part of the show as we roll on here. J-Rock back with you, getting ready to be joined by my man Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan here, and it's been a minute here. Get Dan back on the show and talk a little bit. I want to get his thoughts on some of this as we'll dive into the Browns here. We're going to talk some Buckeyes with Dan as well before we're done, but I want to get his thoughts on where the Browns are coming out of this season, picking back on some of the things that we were saying right before we went to the break as the Browns not going to make changes, which is, I think, is key to the front office, to the coaching staff. I was legitimately worried about that, to be honest with you, that if yesterday's game was not played with the right effort, regardless of the score, I was worried that you could get another regurgitation here of this offseason starting over again thing. And I think that, I'm not saying it was the be-all, end-all, but I think that the performance of the Browns yesterday went a long way to making sure that there was no knee-jerk reactions. I thought that was very important, and glad to see that, because I don't care what anybody says. That is a step that this team didn't need to make, but there are a lot of steps that they do need to make. You've got guys very clearly pushing the boundaries and seeing what they can do, and last year we used the term Three Stooges to signal right around this time to signal Haslam and Banner and Lombardi, but now, I guess you could say Manziel, Gordon, and Gilbert after this weekend, because it was a giant Three Stooges skit. It was, pull my finger, grab my nose, nyuk, nyuk, hit him in the head, all of that. And what a ridiculous weekend. From Josh Gordon showing up late to practice on Friday. They say he was showing up so late, he ran in, he had the wrong jersey on because he went to the wrong locker and grabbed the wrong jersey to get into the practice field. Then You had a party Friday night, Manziel hosted, and there's a lot of different, by the way, conjectures on that, whether it was a full-blown party, whether it was a smaller gathering of a few select players, how much intention there was. I'm telling you, there's a lot of talk that I'm hearing from people just in the building in Berea that believe that a lot of what happened this weekend was a choreographed effort by these players to take control of the narrative here, to send their destination elsewhere. I was point blank told that there is a belief that Johnny Manziel at the early parts of the season began to decide early on that Cleveland was not the place that he wanted to be, and that obviously he had to be very careful early in the season and how things played out, because your perception can come off wrong depending on how things work out. But clearly the way things played themselves out, he was upset from the beginning, from and we've talked about this, from not being able to beat out Brian Hoyer and all of that. And then the way, he quickly feels, and again, this is coming from some people that I trust with what they tell me. I don't just openly throw speculation out there, but and this is so funny because he was the one that jerked around all season and wasn't ready to play. He thought he was spiting the Browns by that. Instead, all he was doing was spiting himself with the way he performed, and then feels, get this, a bit miffed that the Browns so quickly threw him under the bus afterwards because he's just a rookie. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? But anyways, there's a lot of conjecture. How much of this was an orchestrated thing by a couple of guys trying to work their way out of town? I truly believe Josh Gordon wants out. I think he just thought that he was going to get cut, because most times that's what happens in this case, and the player gets what they want. And that's why I caution you guys, let the Browns make trades, let them get something for these guys, and then let them go be somebody else's problem. Seriously, you guys, 1 out of every 10 you guys hear where these guys that were problems turn it around and become relatively decent parts of their new team? Take those odds. Why would you want that dysfunction here? So that you can continue to, that's why, so that people can continue to complain about the dysfunction here. Clear the decks, get it out of the way, and keep it moving, because there's a lot of good people on this team. They have improved this team, and they have to continue there. And I thought that if you listen to every coach and every player's comments yesterday, and Jimmy has them, from him on down, there was very clear things being said, very clear statements being made towards people, and I think that will happen. I'm telling you, you can tell me same old, same old. I respectfully disagree. I want to pick up right there with Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. You guys pick up with us. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. Let's hop to the phone lines. Dan, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jerry. We last year we had the Three Stooges. This year we have the Three Knuckleheads.
There you go. That's a good way
I
to put
prefer
it.
to look at it.
The Three Knuckleheads, exactly. But before we even don't let them ruin our holidays, man. How was your holiday? Very
nice. It was very nice. I got a chance to spend some quality time with the family down here in the Carolinas. Flying back this afternoon, but it was a great Christmas. Hope you guys had a good one too.
Oh, absolutely, man. Glad to hear that, man. And, okay, so you're here. We're all here. We know where we're at with things. I mean, you and I were talking a little bit before the show, just kind of circling around to all of this stuff that went down this weekend, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, so you tell me how you feel. But you heard what I just said. I really do believe that the difference between previous year, you still have the same knuckleheaded type of players, although you do have to caution that, Gordon was already... He was a problem that they inherited, but they definitely went and got their own problem at number 22 in this year's draft. Nobody's getting absolved from that. But the difference is how it's being addressed, because in every Brown season prior to here till 1999, it was head in the sand. It was no comment. We deal with these things in-house, and they don't deal with anything. And now people, I mean, like I said last week, you weren't here about Dansby and Whitner. I'm like, hey, for some of you getting mad about who are these guys to talk about their teammates, that's why you're paying them that much money to come here to say, hey, in winning cities, this crap doesn't happen. Hey, this is what we did when I went to the Super Bowl here. This is what we did when I went to the playoffs there. Or you can keep winning it 4 and 5 games at a time like you do here in Cleveland.
Right. Yeah, I had no problem with that, and I saw Carlos Dansby's comments coming across the ESPN ticker on Friday or Saturday, and I understand now that Justin Gilbert's tender feelings were bruised by that, and I really couldn't care less about that. I mean, there's a guy, the number 8 pick in the draft, who hasn't been able to get his way onto the field, and maybe his feelings need to be bruised. But I think these guys, and I agree with you. It looks like they were trying to orchestrate a ticket out of town, and like you, I've gone back and done a little bit of thinking about all the Browns players from 1999 to present, the 16 seasons we've lived through that have come back to that have, for one reason or another, have found their way out of Cleveland and come back to burn the Browns.
Yeah,
and I'm still on counting on the fingers of the first hand. I was trying to think of who those players might be, and here's what I came up with here. Came up with Gerard Warren, who blew out and came back, who was a journeyman defensive tackle for the Denver Broncos, maybe, who
he showed
actually
us.
Played against the Browns. Then I came up with Cameron Wimbley, a first-round pick who, again, is a serviceable, run-of-the-mill NFL outside linebacker who, with the Raiders, maybe, who played against the Browns and didn't do us any particular harm. So that's about where my list ends of players that have left here that have been high picks, and both first-round picks, Warren and Wimbley, that have turned out to be average at best NFL talent somewhere else. Now, that speaks to the Browns' drafting, acumen, but it also doesn't leave me quaking in my boots that someday Josh Gordon, or let alone John Manziel, will come back to haunt the Browns in some other uniform.
That's what I'm saying. Take those odds, guys. Seriously, your odds are you're going to win this bet here. I mean, take those odds. And even if they do, they're not both coming back to get you. I can promise you that now. They will not both come back to haunt you. But,
right.
Let's circle in first on the Manziel argument, because it's easy for people to say, well, everybody's given up on him in 7 quarters. No. First off, the 7 quarters that you saw is alarming enough by itself. But if it stood by itself, you could go, all right, we can hide this guy in the roster. We can get a guy to coach him up, maybe. But you can give yourself reasons to keep working and give him more opportunities because he's a young guy and you don't give up on a guy that quick. When you add that question mark to everything else, and like we talked about with when we were talking earlier in the season, I can't remember, when we said, well, it comes down to, do you want to have a distraction as your third running back? You know what I mean? Like, at that point, you go, the distraction is not worth what the reward is, what the publicity is, whatever. Like, and maybe if he's your starter and he brings a big media distraction, you go, well, but it's the price you pay for having a flashy starting quarterback. But when he's your developmental quarterback that you're hoping is maybe going to be good enough one day to compete as an actual quarterback, that stuff's not worth the price of the paper it's written on. So where are you at with Manziel? Because that's where I try to separate the argument for people, where the Browns, they need to decide. If we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going. If not, then you don't wait another year. You let somebody else deal with this now, because as we see, just his presence on this roster was very divisive throughout this season.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm okay with making a judgment. Of course, you know, I have to resist the tendency to say, like you, to say